Let's take a look at doing the basketball for this assignment like we're doing in class. I'm going to go through it a little bit faster in a slightly different way that I think will be a little bit easier, but kind of run through it so you guys get a good sense of how this is going to function. So I'm going to get rid of my bowling ball by clicking the V and the beach ball and just leave ourselves with the basketball. You're probably going to need a lot more frames for this one, so I'm going to do about 200, 250. Again, you can always change this later, so it's no big deal. And I'll give myself a little bit more room to play. I'm going to go ahead and set up my first key. I'm going to actually do all of them on the ground. I think we did them in the air first, but this will be a little bit easier. What I just need is the basic keys in here to start it, so I can adjust them in the graph editor later. This will be a lot faster in general. So I'm going to set a key here. I don't know how long it's going to go, so let's see. I'm just going to go ahead and put, let's go to the end actually. So I'll go all the way to 250, and it's going to put the ball where I want it to end up. I'm going to have it enter the frame pretty quickly and then come to a slow stop. So I'm just going to go ahead and just quickly set a graph for myself. You don't have to do this right at the top, but it gives me a little more control. This is my translate Z. It's going to come in, this is said it's going to come in slow or from a stop position and then speed up. I don't want that. I want it coming in at full speed. So I'm going to drag this down so it's coming in full speed. Give us a little bit more room here. And then same thing here, I'm going to give it a nice long slow out. So it's going to take a while to come to a stop. I'm just going to adjust this until it's straight. You do want this line to be straight, linear at first, and then slowly come to that stop. If you go too far down where this tangent is below the line, it means you're actually going to be accelerating at the beginning, which is probably going to feel pretty awkward. You want it to be only slowing down. Let's see what that looks like. Now it's not going to bounce, it's just going to roll through. I'm going to picture in my mind the bounces. At some point it's just going to roll to a stop. That is a long, slow roll. I might even test my patience. I'm going to shorten it up a little bit. So in the graph editor, I'm going to grab, again in the translate Z, I'm going to grab this point, hold in shift, middle mouse button, and drag back to, I don't know, somewhere around, maybe closer to 200. So it'll be the same exact point. We're just going to get there a little faster. I'm going to shrink this up a little bit, make sure this is still linear. You might be thinking, well, why can't you just hit the linear button? The linear button kind of tries to draw a straight line. So if this one is doing lots of stuff, it might not stay a straight line. It only stays a straight line if that handle was really short. Again, to do this, we saw it in the other video, just select your curves and under tangents choose curves weighted tangents. Or if you prefer, you can go to default and select weighted tangents permanently as your default. Every time you make a new key, it'll make it weighted. And then again, adjust to make that straight at the beginning. Let's see what that looks like instead. Again, I'm picturing in my mind that bouncing and coming to a stop. Awesome. If you want to get a little fancier, you could even have it roll back a little bit. I know it's not actually rolling, but no one can tell the difference. So I could actually just have it roll back just slightly to give it that extra little feel at the end. Well, that wasn't a really nice feel. It's probably because of the graph. Let's take a look real quick. So in this case, I'm just going to grab this endpoint and press F to zoom in. Yeah, that's why it looks weird. So it should come in nice and straight. I can't adjust this tangent handle without adjusting this one too, so I'm going to break it by choosing the break tangents. So this is a little bit more advanced. And then shrink this up. And now I can actually adjust this without affecting this side, which I like already, to basically slowly go back the other way and come to a nice slow stop. Let's see what that looks like instead. If this is too confusing, don't sweat it. Again, it's just going to give the appearance that it rolls forward and then falls back a little bit, which is a little bit fast, so I'm going to give myself a little more time for that one. So all I just did there was I held in shift and highlighted the key I want to move, and then grab in the middle and you can move it wherever you want. Don't grab the ends, only the middle. One more time. Ooh, that's nice. I like that. I could probably even go longer, but that's okay. I'm just confusing you guys. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to go ahead and set up my bounce, my first bounce. First bounce is about 22 frames, dropping from waist height for a fully pumped basketball. So 22 frames, that's right there. And then each successive bounce to the basket, oh, that's probably a little too far. I want it to stop sooner. Each successive bounce is about 2 frames less. So if the first one was 22, the next one is 20, which puts us at around 42 frames. So I'm just going to hit S. Notice I'm just keying it along the ground. I'm not worried about the top of the bounce. Next one is going to be 2 less. So we're looking at 18, which should take us to 60, if I'm not mistaken. And then 16, so we're looking at 76. I lucked out there. I'm going to pause while I just do the rest of these. Notice I'm not actually choosing the space where it is. The Z-axis has already done that for me, although I guess I screwed it up by doing this one first. But that's okay. The rest of them should be nice and smooth, and if I have to, I can just get rid of that. So here we go. All right, I've done the progression from 22 frames per bounce down to 4. After you get to 4, you can't really see it anyway, so I'm going to stop there. Each one of these points in the middle is going to get another key. You can do this one of 2 ways. We could just generically pull these up and then just press S, or if you want to turn on the auto key feature so it automatically does that every time we move it, every time we click in the middle of these guys, I'm just kind of guessing. Right about here, and pull them up. It's going to just, in our graph editor, make a more defined, on our y-axis, a more defined bump. I don't really care where it is in space because I'm going to adjust it instead. That's a little bit easier than it would be if I try to actually get the perfect height out of the gate. So I'm basically just pulling each one up to make it happen. Now, the other thing you could do is you could do this all in the graph editor. I'm just going to zoom into this part here. Remember that these keys here, F, these keys here are defining the bounce where it hits the ground. So what I could do is I could just hit use K to scrub, or if you prefer, you can grab up here and scrub, and just put this in between the 2 dots. I'm just doing it visually, and hit S, and it will add each key. So I could go K, S, K, S, K, S, KS. These get pretty hard to see. I might have to zoom in for those. Remember, don't select the ends. It gets a little bit, it'll do a wider area than the one that you select. So KS. This one I'm not going to be able to get a perfect one, so I'm just going to choose that. And then what you can do is grab every other one. I'm going to hold in Control and Shift together, do a little drag box, grab every other one, all the way down here, and then press W for move. And then I'm going to pull them straight up. So Shift, middle mouse button, drag up, and then we can see all the bounces right there. Now obviously those bounces are going to look terrible, because they're not doing the right thing on the curves, and they're not the right height either. So we don't have good timing, we don't have anything good there. We have a little weirdness here, and that's probably because I changed that, that distance. I'm going to fix that by going to my Translate Z, that's this movement left and right, and you can see very clearly I have a weirdness here and a weirdness here. This is still just going to be that one curve, so I can actually just get rid of all these. Trying to line them all up perfectly is going to be a challenge. So I'm just going to delete them all and then fix my curve. Again, that should be a flat tangent, so it comes to a nice slow stop, and I'll exaggerate that stop a little bit. This side, as always, should be linear, should match the line. Let's see how that looks instead. So the bounces are terrible, but the speed in this direction is a perfect gradual stop. So now my only task is to go into the graph editor, go back to the translate Ys, and adjust these. Now if you remember from the data, each bounce should be 75% of the previous bounce. So I'm going to start with this one, shift, middle mouse button, drag up and down, and make it visually, I'm not going to do the math, about 75% of the previous bounce. If I do this all the way through, excuse me, I should get a nice gradual curve where that data is just dropping me down to nothing. If you need to exaggerate like the last few work, that's fine. Or if you need to add another one, that's fine. If you can't see them really well, you can always select a group, press F, and then you can zoom in. And of course, all the other manipulation tools work as well. So you can get these a little bit more perfect. If this bothers you, you can also always add an extra frame in there. It does bother me. Cool. Again, it's not going to look like it bounces, but at least now we have a sense of them. Now, I don't actually like it starting on the ground. I kind of want it to be up, and I don't like the fact that the first bounce is so weak and pathetic. So I'm going to fix that too. Now, we can actually do some of this action while we're looking at both. So if I select my curve here and press F, and my cursor right on there, as I move it, it'll show me the height. In this case, it's defaulting this window. Just right-click in this window to make it active. All right, left-click in that window to make it active. That's really annoying. And then shift, middle mouse, click up until you get the height you want. There, that's a lot better. I can also, I'm going to cheat a little bit here. I want it to start up, not down. I don't want it to come up in the frame. That feels wrong to me. It doesn't have any energy, and it's a kind of an ugly composition. So I'm just going to grab this whole curve just by selecting the curve itself and shifting the whole curve back. So it should now start up here. I can even delete that keyframe and now come in like this. Now I do need to fix my, so here I'll show you the difference. Now, of course, the bounces are all wrong, and they don't look like bounces because the spacing is incorrect. I still need to fix all these curve heights. So once again, 75%, 75%, and so on and so forth. At some point, it should kind of catch up to the point where I can stop messing with this. Or again, I can press F to zoom in and make it a little bit more perfect. So something like that. Let's see what this looks like. Okay. Now, like we did in the last video, I can go back here and adjust each of the tangents to get something that actually looks like a bounce with proper spacing. One thing I'll say before we do that, you might notice here now this is kind of becoming a mess in here and is not really so helpful. That's because we have multiple curves all doing different things. So I'm not going to really be able to look at this anymore for reference. I really need to look at this, which is much more informative anyway. So we have our translate Z, this guy, our translate Y, and all the other ones are flat. To fix this one, all the curves up here on the top are already flat, but if you want to make sure, you can switch them over. That should be a good starting point. And then all the ones on the bottom, the closest thing that we have to showing impact is going to be the linear tangent. This is in, out with impact. It's instantaneous change of direction, whereas this is a soft change of direction. I'm also, while I'm here, going to hit split, so we can split all these at once. So now I can adjust all those curves. And then I'll just do a few points at a time. I'll do the first half and the second half. I'm just going to go through and take my time and just adjust these curves so they're more vertical. Something like this. You might want to do a few and then check it and see how they feel. And if you want to get something a little more springy, you might want to add a little bit more hang time at the top of these. Give it a little, kind of exaggerate that feel a little bit. You kind of have to play. You do have to play. That's the whole point. You have to play to get a feel that works well for you. Now this is already getting kind of hard to see. In my mind, I can't quite see what I'm doing. So I'm going to go ahead and grab these remaining points and again press F. So now they're zoomed in, and now I can make my last changes. Again, remember that the curve going in should be similar to the curve going out as you can. It doesn't have to be perfect unless we're talking about actual physics here. All right, you guys get the point. This takes a little time, but when I say time, I mean like 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes, and the payoff is huge. I'm going to finish these up and we'll come back and check it out. All right, I'm back and I finished these guys up. If you want to see the actual points here, just press F and we can see they're not perfect. Like I could adjust them a little bit, but you'll never see it unless you're doing something that's got to be absolutely pristine, you know, for a feature film. But I doubt this scene would take a lot of focus in the screen if it really is just a bouncing ball. I have an extra data point here. I don't know what that's doing. I can just delete it. I just need to end somewhere. And this is just going to be Y translate anyway. And let's see if we have some improvement here. It definitely looks better. My take is ultimately that that extra point was because of the rollback, which is fine. The rollback's still in there because it was on the Z-axis, whereas I deleted it on the Y-axis. I'm getting a little bit too much hang time for my taste. It doesn't feel quite as believable. So for this one, I would definitely go back here. And all that means is for these guys is I would just adjust them so that they are not really hanging out in space as much. I overdid it. So does this really matter? Yeah, because I want this to actually feel like a basketball. I also noticed that these are feeling kind of wide. I might want to shrink them up a little bit, have them less hang time in the air, but this should help out a bit. Let's see. Closer, but I might have undone it too much at the beginning. So you just got to play a little bit, tweak a little bit, and then you should be good to go. It really doesn't take any more than a few minutes, and then you have a nice payoff of a great shot. You can also play with your Z-axis in this direction to kind of change when the ball finishes its bounces, where the bounces happen. Those things are all possible. Probably here I would need to start playing with my time more, get more frames to play with. 300, not 30, excuse me. So anything you do with this blue graph is going to change where the how fast the balls move in the beginning. Remember that as this line moves down, the balls are moving faster. And if I were to extend this out, the balls are going to hit the ground sooner in the animation and roll out for longer. Let's see what that looks like. Yeah, that's a little weird because all the bounces are at the beginning, so I'm not crazy about that. So instead, let's try the opposite. So if we're burning through the graph a little bit slower, so it means that we're not making it as far, that means the bounces will happen sooner. So I kind of did the opposite in my brain. So instead what I can do is making it go faster, I can make this go slower. Why are you not working? Sorry, it's giving me a little trouble there. So I can make this go slower, which means I don't have as much time to roll out. Again, I want this first part to be straight as the ball comes to a stop. So this should mean more of the bounces happen earlier on, and then there's more time to roll out afterwards. Let's see what that looks like. I'm liking that better. At some point, if you keep playing with that, you're going to get something that just doesn't look right. I mean, you've pushed the physics too far. So, for example, if I were to go even slower here and shrink this up even more, what you see is happening is I'm getting less and less of a nice coming to a stop. There's just not enough time for it. In fact, it's going to speed up just to make it there. Let's see what that looks like. I know it's going to look bad, but let's just see it. So now all the bounces happen really early, but it's actually going to speed up right in here, take longer to roll out, and then come to a stop that's a little bit too sudden. So if that's something you want to do, if you want to actually move that slow, the only way to make it happen, this is fine too, would be, again, to use those extra frames I added in here. So grab the end and shift middle mouse click out to give yourself more time. And now you have a little more time to actually do a rollout. You still want this to be linear though, so you just can't get away from that. That has to happen. Let's see what that looks like, and we'll be done. And there we have it. Cool. So that's how we do a more advanced bouncing ball. Good luck. I know it's a lot of stuff, but hopefully that gives you something to lean into if you're struggling a bit. So good luck.